You're driving through eastern Ontario when you pass a weathered sign that reads, Williamstown, population 411, established 1784. The small town has a few historical landmarks, so you follow signs until you park near the river. Then you feel the wind. It moves low across the St. Lawrence Valley, dragging something with it that pushes you towards a wooden-framed house. This home has stood here longer than the country around it. Trees groan. The river whispers somewhere a warning. But at the edge of this quiet Ontario town, the Manor waits for you. It is silent, watchful, and not entirely empty.
Elliot was sitting downstairs beside me, and we were watching the live feed. So it wasn't Elliot walking down the hallway. And the footsteps in the hallway have been recorded a number of times.
I'm Nadine Bailey, and this is Haunted Canada. Today, I'm joined by Paranormal Events Coordinator Brent Lafave as he shares chilling first-hand accounts from one of the most haunted houses in Ontario. This is the Sir John Johnson Manor House. Built in the late 18th century, its walls have seen war, exile, loyalty, and betrayal. Its builder, Sir John Johnson, was no ordinary man. He was the son of a powerful colonial figure.
William Johnson, he comes over to the United States as a young man, has no particular prospects back in Ireland. He's brought over by his uncle, Captain Sir Peter Warren. He's a naval captain. His job is to sail up and down the East Coast, guarding the coast of the British. He brings over William, sends him up into the Mohawk Valley, the relative wilderness, And William turns out to be a very, very capable character. Good administrator, makes friends with the Iroquois, the Mohawk in that area, speaks their language, adopts their customs, very capable soldier, although he had no formal military training. He becomes a major general in the British colonial army, conducts a number of successful campaigns, including sieges. And I was a soldier once, and siege warfare is very difficult stuff.
That's Brent Lafave. He is a long-term resident of Williamstown, Ontario. He said William Johnson was so valued by the British, he was made first Baronet of New York, a title that would be passed on to his son John when William died in 1784. He would become a surgeon, but began his career in the military at just 13 years old during the French-Indian Wars and the 7-Year War.
John inherited everything. Over 240,000 acres, which would make him the biggest landowner in British North America, with the exception perhaps of Lord Fairfax, Virginia. But very likely he was the largest landowner. Next couple of years, American Revolution. He remains loyal to the crown, and he has to literally flee because the American rebels are going to arrest him. So he takes some of his retainers. He comes up across the Adirondack Mountains, reports in Quebec.
John had inherited land, influence, and title. He became second baronet when his father died and was personally knighted by the king. But then, when revolution tore through the 13 colonies, Sir Johnson chose to be loyal to the crown, and in doing so, chose the losing side. That meant he had to abandon his estate in New York. But he did not leave quietly.
He has to stop at a Mohawk community called St. Regis then, Akwesasne now, because if you've ever come across the Adirondacks, pretty tough going. So they're kind of in bad shape. Mohawks, of course, know who he is, because his father's second wife is a Mohawk, Molly Brant, the Brants of Brantford. He speaks fluent Mohawk. They help, he and his fellow travelers get back on their feet. Then he goes to Quebec, reports to the governor, given a commission as lieutenant colonel, and a warrant to raise a regiment. First 1 battalion and then later 2. And he conducts some very successful campaigns going back into what's now the United States.
He returned during the war, leading raids through the Mohawk Valley like a shadow moving between allegiance and survival. He was appointed Inspector General for Indian Affairs and eventually became Brigadier General. When the war ended, there were thousands of loyal soldiers and their families unable to return and needing refuge.
They talk to Sir John and they say, "You're going to settle all of these refugees from what's now the Quebec border up to Prince Edward County. That's going to be your task." It's a pretty tough job because what they're sending them into is the wilderness. And I mean real wilderness. So that's what he did, and did it very successfully. And one of the places that he chose as his own land grants was Williamstown. Of course, he named it after his father. And he built his house, and he built 2 mills, a sawmill on this side, a grist mill on the other side of the river. And you do that, you know that your community is going to flourish. And he donated land for school, and he donated land for an agricultural fair. So he made sure that the village was going to last long after him.
This is also where Sir John Johnson built his manor in 1784, as a symbol of status rebuilt from loss. But the house wasn't built on untouched ground. Before the manor, before the crown, before the idea of Canada itself, this land belonged to others. It was the traditional territory of the Mohawk Nation. And Johnson established his estate. The echoes of displacement, conflict, and uneasy alliances pressed into the soil beneath the foundation. Over time, servants came and went. Families lived and died within these rooms, including one connected closely to Brent Lafave, my guest today. You see, his wife is a direct descendant of Sir John's son, William, who managed the property in the early 1800s. He had twins. One of them survived, and he is Brent's wife's great-great-great-great-grandfather. Sir John is buried in the family crypt at his family home on what was then called Mount Johnson, south of Montreal. Several family members are also buried there alongside him. That property eventually passed out of the Johnson family, and the house burned, and the land grew over everything until the mid-1950s.
And there was a chap in there with a bulldozer doing some work, and he cleaned the crypt across the side of the mountain. But prior to that, people had gone in, and they found that Sir John and Lady Polly's heads had disappeared.
Nobody knows when the heads disappeared or how it happened, but the Johnson family crypt was eventually discovered, and the remains were collected and reinterred. Brent and his wife attended the ceremony.
All of the parts that they managed to collect, they built a smaller version of the crypt with the original doors, and they had a few, 2 urns, when they put remains in the urns and they sealed it back up.
Brent believes that with Sir John and his wife missing their heads, this might be the reason why at the manor in Williamstown, like many places shaped by upheaval, something has remained behind. Visitors have described it for decades. Footsteps where no one walks, doors that close with deliberate force, a presence on the staircase. And tonight, we step inside this historic home because this is where the story begins. The Sir John Johnson Manor house was constructed in the 1780s as both a residence and a statement. Built in a Georgian style, solid and symmetrical, it reflected the order and hierarchy Johnson sought to reestablish after years of upheaval. This was supposed to be a symbol of endurance and that loyalty to the crown had not been in vain. But building a life doesn't erase what came before. The manor quickly became a center of local authority. Johnson held administrative roles, oversaw land distribution, and maintained influence in the growing Loyalist community. Within its walls, decisions were made that affected settlers, soldiers, and the indigenous people who had fought alongside the British, in particular members of the Mohawk people, whose own displacement during and after the war was profound and lasting. Accounts from the 19th century describe the house as active, even after Johnson's death in 1830. Servants reported hearing movement long after the household had settled for the night. One story tells of a maid who refused to return to the upper floor after encountering a man standing silently at the end of a corridor, not dressed in contemporary clothing, but in something older. When she described him, others noted the resemblance to portraits of Johnson himself. Brent sees these entities not as ghosts, but as something else, something more permanent.
And we call them the residents because they do reside here. Whether or not they come and go, I don't know. The ones that are here, we've been very, very fortunate, Nadine, that they're nice. They will at times touch people. No pushing, shoving, no slapping.
Whether imagination or memory, stories of spirits roaming the house have remained. Over the decades, the manor changed hands. Its purpose shifted as the community around it grew. Families adapted the space. Rooms were repurposed. But certain areas resisted change, either by design or by something less tangible. And that was seen in the staircase that creaked in a rhythm too consistent to ignore, or when a door refused to remain closed, no matter how often it was latched. In the early 20th century, the building transitioned toward preservation, eventually becoming a historic site. With that shift came a new kind of visitor. Those who were not connected to the house by blood or duty, but by curiosity. And that's when the reports became more detailed. Tour guides began noting patterns. Visitors, unaware of the building's stories, would independently describe the same situations in the same locations. Among the spirits at the manor are two figures that have been residents for years. They're known as the woman in a blue dress and a little boy.
I don't know who she is. I could say case that I would know about, documented case, would be about 100 years ago. There are some ladies out in the front lawn underneath the oak tree, and they're quilting. And one of the ladies comes into the house or something, and she runs out very quickly after that, yelling, "I've seen her, I've seen the ghost," and she doesn't say goodbye, pick up her kit or anything, and she runs into the village. So that's, as near as I know, that's the first documented case.
In that decade since, she has made herself known in many ways.
Different people have seen her. Different people have heard her. When we're doing the renovations in this room, we had some fellows in here, and they were doing plaster work, lath and plaster walls, and we had to do a lot of repair work. And then they were going to paint after that. So I thought, listen, it's not fair if all of a sudden she shows up and scares the living daylights out of these guys. So I said, okay, guys, listen, if you see or hear something, if you see something, it'll likely be out of the corner of your eye and maybe going down that hallway. Or if you hear someone talking in the hallway, you go out to see who it is and there's nobody there. It's not unusual. And nobody's not going to hurt you or scare you. About 2 days later, I came back in to see them. Yes. I said, what do you mean? And they said, we heard it. And I said, well, where? So in the back hallway, a woman started talking, and we went out, and there's nobody in the hallway. So I said, yeah, okay, well, I told you.
She has also appeared to summer students working in the archives.
So people who are from Glengarry County that have literally gone all across North America, they contacted to try to find information about their ancestors. And we hired summer students. We have to tell them when we're going through the interview process that these things might come up, because sometimes they do. And oddly enough, you'll have two students, and one will see and hear something and one won't. Occasionally, they'll both see something like a tabletop flag waving for some reason. There's no wind or anything. Something just starts waving flag, just to say I'm here.
Brent said that one of the strangest encounters happened during an investigation by Phantoms of Yore. Founded in March 2018 by Elliot Lucanard and Eric Oikel, the paranormal investigators and tour guides visited the Manor house in 2019, and they found evidence that the woman in blue isn't the only resident roaming the halls.
I don't think they even got through the kitchen before they started having feelings. Then they went up the back stairs, went down the hallway, and looked in the other rooms, and then they were in the living room, the sitting room at the top of the stairs, the main stairs, and they were asking the usual questions, is there anybody here? What's your name? How long have you been here? Could you give us 2 knocks? That kind of stuff. Wasn't much happening.
The investigators were hoping for answers on their spirit box, which is a device that scans radio frequencies and amplifies sounds.
And one of them says to, I think Eric said to Corey, well, that's Elliot. Now, the problem with that was that Elliot was sitting downstairs beside me, and we were watching the live feed. So it wasn't Elliot walking down the hallway. And the footsteps in the hallway have been recorded a number of times. And they were asking for names, and they got a few names, and they were asking for a knock, and they got a couple of knocks. And at the top of the stairs here, you go up a set of stairs, down a long hallway, come around to the sitting room, then there's another set of stairs, 6 steps up to the parts that's above what we call the ballroom. And there are 3 bedrooms up there in the hallway. So they take this balloon, they call him Hank, yellow happy face balloon, and he's on a plastic stick. He rests about that high, just about the top of this table height. And there's Hank, and of course, he just hangs there because there's nothing to make him move. And, they're talking and asking questions, and all of a sudden Eric says to Corey, look at the balloon, because the balloon has gone away from the doorway and has gone back to the doorway of one of the bedrooms. And it's moved about 3 feet. So they're talking about that, like, how does that happen? And then it moves back. But if you have a draft, it's going to push something one way. It's not going to push it back again. So, they're talking about that's pretty amazing. And this time that's Eric and Elliot that are up there now. Then the balloon goes out of the doorway, and then it comes back. It's like playing peekaboo, and it comes back again. So Elliot says, yeah, he's playing peekaboo. Look at that. And he says, oh, yeah, I see every time. Yeah, peekaboo. And he hits a voice box. Shh, peekaboo. It's like a child's voice, except it's electronic. But it's pretty hard to be coincidence. They said they'd never seen or heard anything like that. So about an hour later, Corey and I are up there. And Hank is just sitting there on his plastic stick and not doing anything. And then when Corey says to me, look at the balloon, and it starts doing the same thing. I said, it's playing peekaboo again. I had the voice box. And I said, yeah, peekaboo, peekaboo. And I hit the voice box, and right behind me, spirit box right behind me, I hear, peekaboo. This time, no static. This time it's a woman's voice. Clear as a bell, and like she's standing right over my shoulder. Now, there's a lot of history about what we call the woman in the blue dress, or the blue lady, and this is the exact area where she is historically said to be. So we're right in her living room, and we're doing this, and because I had the spirit box, and shh, peekaboo. Elliot said that this is the clearest response that they've ever gotten, because there's no static this time. It's like she's speaking right to us. So that was exciting.
That night was exciting because not only did they hear the woman through the spirit box, they heard what they believed to be a little boy.
It was getting late in the evening, so I took up some treats. I put them at the top of the second stairs, and I said, I brought some treats for you. And I hit the spirit box, and shh, thank you, the little boy's voice. Now again, that's a lot for coincidence, eh? And then the house went dead quiet. Absolutely nothing. Couldn't get any responses. So I said, now that's rude. You're being rude. We've been very nice, and I'm going to take these treats. I picked them up, and as I'm walking past the sitting room to start down the hallway, I thought, well, I'll just see. And I hit the spirit box. Shh, I want them.
And Brent wasn't the only one in his family to have encountered the little boy. His daughter, Jenna, was using a room to teach English online to students in China. One day, while setting up her laptop and equipment, something stopped her dead in her tracks.
So she'd come down here and set up her connection to teach. So she gets in there, she's got her table set up, she's got a computer set up, all ready to go. And she went out to go to the washroom, and that hallway was just dead cold, which is strange because the furnace that heats this half of the house heats that hallway as well. She said, unbelievably cold. And then this door behind me, over my left shoulder, you used to close it, and you'd need two hands after to reef it open. It would seize. And honest to God, I'd have to take two hands to reef it open. And when it opened, it would like spring open. So just as she's getting ready, the door opens. And it doesn't spring open. She said it goes nice and slow, as if somebody's opened it to walk in.
Jenna kept her composure and began her lesson.
And she's got her long ponytail over the back of the chair, and somebody pulls on her ponytail. Now, I said to her after, I said, now, Jenna, that's not possible. Her ponytail was at the back of the chair, and you went to move her something, and your ponytail caught in the chair. She said, no way, Dad. My daughter's not a shrinking violet. She's an Afghan. She's an infantry soldier. She's an Afghan veteran. Doesn't scare. And stayed and finished her lesson. But I said, no, it was an accident. No, Dad, it wasn't an accident. That happened.
Moments like these have begun to accumulate. Individually, they're easy to dismiss. Together, they form something harder to ignore. A pattern that suggests the house is not entirely finished with its past. A sudden chill near the east-facing rooms. The distant impression of someone behind you. The sound of a woman and child from the other side of the veil have many wondering who they are.
Children dying in the house, yeah, quite possibly. We know that there was just down the lawn here, you go down a steep riverbank, and there's a little boy who drowned just down there, about 4 or 5 years old.
Over the years, the Manor's reputation for being haunted has grown, and with it, many groups have arrived looking for their own unique experience.
People come here really think it's not an old, decrepit, rundown place. It's like Manor, and they see a very nice restored old mansion. And I'm not sure what they initially think they're going to find. The people who are serious, they come here without preconceptions. And boy, oh boy, do they have a nice experience. Because what is here is not, they're not malicious. Some of them do have a sense of humor. No one has left here that has said they've had a bad experience. Some of them have left here absolutely amazed. We've got one group, they're coming back in September for their 5th visit, and they're from the Oshawa area. And their leader, Dave, I asked him, I think about the 3rd time he came back, I said, Dave, why do you keep coming back here? And he said, we've been to a lot of different places. We've been to places in the States that were supposedly had haunted paranormal activity. And he said, a lot of these places, there's nothing. It's just hype. He said, come here, and we know what we've experienced, and it's what you hunt for.
That's why Brent and the Manor have embraced the paranormal.
Sometimes Phantoms of Yore will do a public investigation where they'll bring in, groups over the course of a weekend, and we'll do one solo, and that's go up that back stairs, and they take the person up, they sit them down because they're not supposed to move, and when the time is up, they go up and they take them down. So they're up there in the dark. And I saw one that was to me was a perfect indication. She's sitting in the chair, and ahead of her a little ways is this box about yay big. It measures differences in temperature. For instance, if the temperature really drops, all of a sudden you're going to hear a beep and a flash of light. And it's very fast. Beep, flash of light. Ahead of that, a couple of feet or 3 feet, is a cat ball. Now, if something impacts the cat ball, it multicolor lights, okay? Now, it's not going to go off by itself. Something has to activate it, touch it, or go by close enough that it's going to light up. So this was a very nice lady, very respectfully asking if there's anybody there, could they make contact with her? And all of a sudden, it's like something walked down that hallway. You saw the cat ball light up, you saw the beep, you heard the beep flash, and you saw the lady go like this. So whatever it was came down that hallway, went right to her, went around her, or just stood beside her for a split second, enough to make her really cold. And the house was very active in December for some reason. And in both cases, they used dead bells. Dead bells are like, the little bell that are on the counter when you used to go into a hotel or something, you go ding, ding, ding. Well, they would put them out to see if they can get someone to actually activate them. And in both cases, that happened. And in one case, I watched the live feed with one of the group that was doing the control. So they were saying, well, would you sound that bell, please? And it was actually in this room, and on that mantle, there was a little device that if you pressed it or came close enough to it, it would light up. So they asked, well, would you make the bell sound ding, ding, ding? And they say, is that you? And then the light goes off. But, you kind of get what you ask for if you ask the right way. Some people will come in and I've come from a long way and I want you to do this and you have to do that.
One of the more unusual incidents involved a man who wanted to do his own investigation. Brent sent him up and then went downstairs to work on his computer.
So he's upstairs, comes down after a couple of hours, said, how'd things go? Anything interesting? I said, yeah, a few little things, but said the only sound really was you talking down here on the phone. Said I haven't been talking, and I haven't been on the phone, and it's been totally quiet down. His face kind of dropped. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah, whoever you were hearing, not me.
For Brent, it's all about making sure that visitors are respectful and he feels a sense of responsibility and stewardship.
Who is here? The residents are, for lack of a better word, they're kind. They're not screaming, they're not pushing, they're not trying to scare people. They're just trying to let people know that they're here. So, when we've got people who we found out that they're not really the sort of people we want. Like, we don't want somebody standing behind the door, banging on the door. We don't want that.
For Brent, the residents of the Sir John Johnson Manor house are not something to fear, but something to respect. The lives that passed through this house were bound to a time of upheaval, loyalty, loss, and survival. And if traces of them remain, they are part of the same history the manor was built to preserve.
And if you go about it the right way, they will make contact with you. Because you could come here and get absolutely nothing. It's whether they're here at the time, whether they can contact you at the time, because maybe you can't. So there's no guarantees, but a lot of it will depend on you. We had one group come, and they didn't want to know anything about the history. They wanted just to experience it themselves, and they wanted to do an overnighter. So they did that, and said to them the next morning, "Well, how was your night?" And the answer was, "When can we come back?" So you're not going to see like in the horror movies, but you are going to make contact with people who haven't been alive for a long, long time.
Doors are not to be provoked. Voices are not to be challenged, and the unseen are not treated as spectacle. Instead, there is an unspoken understanding at the Sir John Johnson Manor house that if the past still resides here, then it is not our place to disturb it. We can only walk carefully alongside it, listening, remembering, and leaving the space as undisturbed as we found it. Thank you for joining me as we explored Sir John Johnson Manor, and a special thank you to Brent Lafave, Paranormal Events Coordinator, for taking the time to talk with me. I really do appreciate it, and that is the best title I've ever heard. If you want to check out Sir John Johnson Manor House, I will link their website in the show notes. Do you have your own ghost story, paranormal encounter, or true crime? If yes, email it to me so that I can cover it and share it with the listeners on this podcast. Email me through the website, hauntedcanada.com. This show is a labor of love, and if Haunted Canada has ever given you a good scare or kept you up a little later than you planned, you can help keep these stories coming by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes, and every single one means the world to me. And if you want even more Haunted Canada, I have a Patreon coming out very soon with bonus content, early access, and more. Stay tuned for that. Haunted Canada is sponsored by the Ebon and Ghost Tours. I will link the website in the show notes. Hey everyone, I've got some exciting news. I'll be hosting a haunted and paranormal tour of Ireland in May of 2027 in partnership with my friend Joanne at Expedia. We will be visiting haunted locations, staying in haunted castles, and exploring many historic places while delving into ghosts, hauntings, and the paranormal, so make sure to bring your EMF readers. This will be happening from May 22nd to May 29th of 2027, and I have linked it in the show notes and it's on the website. I can't wait to explore Ireland with you. Remember, space is limited, so book early. Haunted Canada is written and produced by me, Nadine Bailey, with senior producer, Dila Velasquez. Production and sound design is by Rob Johnson, with help from Corey Price. If you would like to support this podcast, please follow, share, and tell a friend about this podcast. We would also appreciate a like and a 5-star written review. And if you're on Spotify, tap follow. It helps more people find these Canadian ghost stories. Also, you can follow me on our different social media platforms, including TikTok and my YouTube channel, Haunted Canada. thank you from all of us at Haunted Canada and Curious Cast. Have a good night, everyone, and stay haunted.